In this video, I'm going to look at TTArtisan's 100mm 2.8 Macro 2x with 2x magnification. It's actually a new version of their previous tilt and shift 100mm Macro 2x lens, which I reviewed last year. That one received only positive feedback for its optical qualities, except for its flare resistance and Sunstars, which is not so important for a macro lens, with some reservations about handling and its limited tilt and shift effect. Now, as they had promised, they have come with a variant without any tilt and shift functionality. That is a short telephoto lens with 2x macro capability and the possibility to be used as a portrait lens with nice bokeh, if it is as good as the last version was. Let's have a look. I tested this lens on a 46MP Nikon Z7 Mark II. This review exists also as a text-based blog post version on our blog site. You can also see all the sample images with high resolution on a separate site. I put the link to the text-based post and the sample images in the description below. TTArtisan kindly provided this lens for test and review purposes, but this is a totally independent review. As mentioned, there has been a tilt and shift version of this lens that looks almost identical, except the tilt and shift mechanism. First, let's look at the handling and build quality. This TTArtisan has a focal length of 100mm with 24 degrees angle of view. It has 12 aperture blades and the minimum focusing distance is 0.25 meter. The filter size is 67mm and you can get the lens in various mounts like E, X, Z, RF, L, GFX, EF and F. It weighs about 700 to 748 grams, depending on the mount. TTArtisan 100mm 2.8 Macro 2:1 is built entirely of metal. The lens is completely manual focus and manual aperture setting on the lens, with no electric contacts. It comes with a metallic lens cap that fits securely over the front. There is no lens hood included though. The lens looks beautiful and seems to be designed beautifully when you hold it in your hands, but when attached to my Z camera, it has some small play and wobbles on the camera a little. It's a bit annoying, which was the case with the previous tilt and shift version too. The lens is as long as its tilt and shift sister. The tilt and shift mechanism is just replaced with a hollow helicoid. So this lens is, as its tilt and shift sister, a little front heavy. There is no weather sealing. The aperture ring has variable distance click stops at every half a stop from f2.8 to f11 and only full stop clicks between the three smallest apertures f11 to f22. The focusing ring has only 100 degrees throw. This is a too small throw for a macro lens even with a 1:1 magnification, and it is way too small for a 2:1 macro lens. This makes focusing at closer distances a challenge. However, in such macro distances, you will not use the focusing ring to focus. You put the focus and then move the lens and camera forth and back. I found the focusing ring not as stiff as it was on the tilt and shift version. Could be sample variation, but it feels that it has just enough resistance. All markings on the lens are engraved and filled with paint. Aperture values, distance in meters and feet, depth of field markings and the lens name. There is also a scale for magnification, which runs from 1:2 to 2:1, a useful feature for times you know a certain magnification to be used. There are 4 female screw holes on the front of the lens barrel, near the front lens element, over, under, to the left and right side of the barrel, where you can attach an included flash cold shoe for special macro arm lights, or small LED lamps, a very nifty and nice feature. Pity that there is only one shoe included though. Now to the optical features. The lens is made of 14 lens elements in 10 groups, 6 of which are high index glasses. For the infinity sharpness test, we look at 3 areas of the image: center, mid-frame and corner. Excellent sharpness right from f2.8 in the center. It gets marginally better at f4, and f5.6 is perfect. At f8 we have the same level of sharpness. At f11 it gets a negligible dip due to the diffraction, and at f16 it becomes a little softer. And f22 shows the softest image of all apertures. In the mid-frame, the sharpness is a little less at f2.8, but improves a lot at f4 and is excellent at f5.6. f8 demonstrates the best sharpness here, and then it starts to slightly become less sharp at smaller apertures. The sharpness is a little better in the corner than in the mid-frame wide open. Most probably due to the field curvature, as the MTF chart also had suggested that. It gets better at f4 and much better at f5.6, and at f8 it's very good. f11 is the peak performance for the corners. At f16 and f22 it gets a little bit softer. Let's look at the points of interest for portraits at portrait distance. The center, the center's inner circle and center's outer circle. At f2.8 center sharpness is good but lacks contrast. But inner periphery and outer periphery sharpness are good. Stopping down just half a stop improves both sharpness and contrast everywhere. At f4 the sharpness and contrast are excellent in all the 3 test points. At f5.6 the sharpness and contrast are excellent everywhere. At close-up distances the sharpness is excellent from f2.8, which is the maximum aperture. It is excellent up to f8. f11 sees a small dip in sharpness due to the diffraction, and it becomes more obvious at f16 and f22. I would use the lens at f11 with no hesitation, and even at f16 where you have a very good sharpness. Lens distortion. Normally short telephoto lenses have the best distortion correction, and this one is not an exception. This TTArtisan lens has negligible pincushion distortion, so small that I wouldn't bother to correct it even in architecture photography. Vignetting. The TTArtisan performs very well in this test with very low vignetting. The vignetting is negligible already at f2.8. Focus shift and aberrations. There is no focus shift or color fringing in out of focus areas, which means no spherical or longitudinal chromatic aberrations. The chromatic aberrations are surprisingly very well controlled. Normally, macro lenses at this focal length suffer more or less from the longitudinal chromatic aberration, but this TTArtisan is not one of them. Very good. Flare resistance. As with earlier tilt and shift version, moderate to severe veiling flare, lens flares and ghosts are visible. Just try to avoid the sun at any cost. Fortunately, in this lens's applications, the sun very seldom is included in the frame, so in 95% of cases you will not need to worry about it. Coma. Coma's correction is irrelevant to this lens and its applications, and you should not worry about it. For consistency's sake, I have looked at it anyway. This lens, like its tilt and shift sister, suffers from a mild coma, which gets better by stopping down. At f5.6 it's almost gone, and by f8 it's completely gone. Sunstars. It seems that in this section we see a change from the previous tilt and shift version, as Sunstars have become much better. Maybe TTArtisan has refined their aperture blades alignment a little, as we get good 12-pointed Sunstars from f5.6, and they get very nice from f8 and smaller aperture openings. Focus breathing. This TTArtisan, like all macro lenses, suffers from heavy focus breathing. Let's look at the bokeh. The bokeh is soft and pleasant. At macro distances it cannot be softer, and at portrait distance it is also quite nice. In my eyes at least. Now to the conclusion. There are a lot to like about this lens. The 2:1 magnification, the sharpness, the bokeh, the price, the distortion control, vignetting, chromatic aberrations, and Sunstars. It would be perfect if the lens didn't wobble a little when attached to the Z cameras. I'm not sure how it is with other mounts, and the flare resistance could be a little bit better, and a lens hood wouldn't hurt either. All in all, this is the same lens as I reviewed last year. At least it seems that it optically is identical to that one, except the Sunstars that are much better from this one. The conclusion will also be more or less identical too. This is a very sharp lens with tremendous macro capabilities. As a macro lens, it is great optically with remarkable 2:1 magnification and fantastic sharpness. It is even excellent for portraits with very nice bokeh. No distortion or vignetting, but the handling could be a little bit better. If you want a pure macro lens with 2:1 magnification, this is a great candidate. It is very budget friendly and huge value for money for such a lens at only about $320 US. If you would like to have suggestions for alternatives, have a look at our blog post. I put a link in the description below. As mentioned earlier, this review exists in written format on our blog site. You can find many detailed test charts with more sample images there. I put a link to the blog post in the description below. Huge thanks for watching. Any comments are most welcome. If you like this video, give it the thumbs up. And for more content like this, please subscribe if you haven't done so yet. Until the next video, have a fantastic time everyone.